All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Welcome to our 1 o'clock meeting. I can confirm we do indeed have quorum. Currently absent from the meeting is Dina Coder, Glenn Griffiths, and William McMillan, Corey Scott, and Nicholas Toljesi. I do actually have one, actually Glenn Griffiths is right there, sorry. I do have one sad item of thing to state. Maxine Bridges has passed away. So she was a member of this committee. The city of Kingston thanks her for all of her hard work, and our thoughts are with her family at this time. And with all that out of the way, I'm happy to turn it over to you, Mr. Chair, to get the meeting started.
Thank you very much, Jane, and thank you very much for the notes on Maxine as well. So yes, certainly our thoughts are with their family. So with that, I will call the meeting to order. So first up, we have the approval of the agenda. Hopefully everybody's taking a look at that jam-packed agenda with a lot of information included. Hopefully everyone looked it over very thoroughly. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the approval? I see Councillor Neal and I saw Glenn and his hands all approved. Sorry, Ian, I saw your...
With the addeds, please, Mr. Chair.
Yes, there were 2 addendums as well that Ian sent out. Both correspondence that Mac received, but they were in reference to a business item on our agenda. I believe it was 7B on our agenda. So those as well. So believe that was all approved. The minutes from our last meeting, were there any issues that anyone saw? Seeing nothing, a lot of shaking of heads. And can I have a mover and a seconder for that? I see Janice and Donna, I think, had her hand up first. All approved, or all in favor, sorry. Okay, that has passed. Next is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Is there any that needs to be declared? I do not see any. Delegations. Once again, I do not see any. So moving on to briefings. We are joined today to give an update is Spears Canals, who is Director of Facilities Management and Construction Services. So with that, Spears, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon to members of the committee and to the chair. And I'd like to thank you for giving us this opportunity to give you this briefing. Next slide, please. Our agenda for this briefing is we'd like to give you some construction project highlights of some projects that we just completed or are just about ready to complete. I'd like to talk about 2 future construction projects. I would also like to talk a little bit about our enhanced maintenance practices, some training our staff have been doing, and any questions that members of the committee might have or comments. Next slide, please. Some of the projects that we talked about that were complete or just about complete, all these projects had or have MAC representatives assigned to them. I'll briefly highlight some of the enhancements or the accessibility features that we implemented in our City Hall project, our fleet maintenance garage, our Kingston East End Community Center, our sleeping cabins, and Richardson Beach House. Next slide, please. At City Hall, we have a multi-phase, multi-year project where we're upgrading the fire life safety systems there, including the sprinkler systems and the fire alarm systems. And there's new and visual fire alarm signals being installed throughout the building. Next slide, please. At the fleet maintenance garage, a few of the accessibility features that we incorporated into this facility that opened in 2021 is detectable warning surfaces, power door operators, color contrast on doors and wall and floor transitions. The accessible washroom facilities that were installed include space for a future adult change table, and all the fire alarms are audible and visual also. Next slide, please. The Kingston East End Community Center just opened this year. There's some of the features are accessible appliances. Again, the audible fire alarm system, exterior crossings. There's tactile services, including to identify the walking track within the building. One last thing that we're just finishing with the MAC representative is the vision strips. They've already been selected, and we just need to place them on the windows and have a final review, and that installation should be done over the next few months. Next slide, please. The sleeping cabins, where we installed them at both their locations, at the Portsmouth Olympic Harbor and at the summer location at Center 70. We ensured that for the 10 cabins, working with the operator OLS, that they were made accessible. And we also ensured at Center 70, we accelerated some accessibility work that we were doing to open some door openings and some other features. We accelerated them to help accommodate the cabins at Center 70. And also at POH, we created some temporary accessible shower facilities for the tenants. And also at Center 70, we had the ability to install them, but they were not required due to their tenant mix at the time. Next slide, please. Richmond Beach House, that project is going to be completed by the end of this year. There's power door operators. There's a universal washroom with an adult change table. There's widened corridors. There's an accessible change room, rooms and washrooms. And there's contrasting finishes on floors, walls, and doors. Next slide, please. Transit bus shelters. The image associated with this slide is what our new transit shelters will look like. They have turning radiuses within the shelter. There's vision strips on glass and edges. There's tactile warning surfaces. There's bariatric seating, and there's enhanced lighting. And we're hoping that our first one is installed in December, or will be early next year. Next slide, please. We worked with the Rick Hansen Foundation for them to review and assess two of our facilities. One was the Rideau Heights Community Center that had opened a few years ago, and the new Kingston East Community Center that were audited by the Foundation for Accessibility. And both facilities received a gold rating, which is the highest level award awarded by the Rick Hansen Foundation. Next slide, please. Some future projects that we're doing. The Market Street entrance, which is our main accessible entrance to City Hall, is being reconstructed. It's actually a bridge, and it needs some restoration work to happen with it. As part of that work, we're installing a temporary Market Street accessible ramp, which is at the end of the market wing on the square where the ice rink is. And at the same time, as part of that project, Andrea Labby has been working with a committee and the Heritage Committee to create permanent accessible signage to direct people on how to get into City Hall on the exterior. And that signage will be also installed as part of this ramp project, the reconstruction project. And another project that we're starting to work on is the Transit Administration Mechanics and Storage Building expansion. It's a multi-year project. but that will have some significant accessibility enhancements incorporated into the new work and the major renovations that will be occurring for that project. Next slide, please. We continue at City Hall with our enhanced maintenance practices. And a question we occasionally get asked is if the protective scaffolding is being installed again this year for the Market Street entrance. And it will be once the ramp reconstruction work is completed. And that work will take 2 to 3 months. And then when this entrance opens again and the temporary entrance is closed, the scaffolding will be reinstated. Next slide, please. Throughout the year, we have various training that we do for staff, and any new staff, we provide training with respect to accessible documents and how to create them and review them. We coordinated with the Rick Hansen Foundation to do these 2 certifications or audits on those 2 facilities I mentioned earlier, the 2 community centers. And we learned that they also meet AODA and FAD's requirements, their requirements, but also we found some areas that they exceeded our FADs. And we're also starting to look at how we implement those in our new facilities going forward. And we're continually investigating workshops and courses for our staff associated with increasing the accessibility of our facilities. Next slide, please. Any questions from members of the committee?
Thank you for that, Spiros. I see David Williams has his hand up.
It's just a confirmation, Spiros, when you spoke of the transit, the new transit stops design for the whole new setup, is that going to be at the hubs, like down at the Cataract Way Center and like the main pickup drop-offs of multiple, and I guess Kingston Center as well? Is that the intent?
William, I also have, and I apologize, I didn't introduce Jeff Rempel from our team at the beginning of my presentation. He's overseeing this work and he can give us a lot of specific information and details on this. Jeff?
Yeah, it is a replacement program that Transit's going to start to move forward with. So they've identified a number of locations to test them out. And then if they work, they're going to start to roll them out citywide. So the first ones we're looking at are on Henderson Place, because that road went through some improvements recently. And the next stations we're going to be looking at are on Bay Ridge, because it goes in concert with the improvements to the road. So when they add the multi-use bike lanes and all those improvements, it's a great opportunity to swap out the bus shelter. But it's a citywide program. And we're slowly going to roll them out, but it's starting on Henderson and then looking to Bay Ridge and then slowly working our way across the city.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jeff. Helpful. Happy it's citywide.
Yes, thank you, David. Any other questions, comments for Spiros? Seeing none. On behalf of Max Spiros, thank you very much for your presentation. And congratulations to you and your team.
And thank you for giving us this opportunity again to give you this briefing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on in our agenda to business, which is there's a lot. So first up is the 2023-2025 multi-year accessibility plan. Derek, I'm assuming you're up, my friend.
Yes, this is me, Andrew. Thank you very much. I'll just provide the committee with an overview of the report and then happy to answer any questions. So this report is the end of a year-long process. It's gone through several stages of work. So initially, I worked with city staff to see what works were planned for the next 3-year period that would touch on the different areas of accessibility. Also important to this plan was public engagement. So there were 2 different rounds. It began in March of this year, where it was just an open idea generation amongst residents of Kingston, asking basically what could the city do to improve accessibility throughout the city. Those comments were then incorporated into a draft plan that also built upon the feedback from internal staff. And in June of this year, a first draft of the plan was released, and the public was invited to provide further comment on that plan as well. Now, the majority of comments that were received throughout the public engagement focused on 2 areas, and I don't think people will be surprised. It was the design of public spaces, as well as the information and communication areas within accessibility. So you'll note throughout the report that the tallies for public engagement and the comments there focus on those areas. Now, an additional step in the development of the plan was the city had hired Canes Consulting to help do an outside review of the first draft plan. So in addition to Natalie, who was to join us today, but is unfortunately under the weather and unable to attend, she conducted a review from her own expert perspective, as well as Canes did have some one-on-one and a larger focus group with members of the accessibility community in Kingston and sought their feedback on the plan as well. So the report which we received from Canes is attached to the report that you received today, and the comments and suggestions that were received through that engagement were also incorporated into the final plan. So after about this 5 to 6 month process, the final result is the draft plan that is presented to you today. The first half of the plan covers sort of an overview of accessibility and the responsibilities of the city and other levels of government and how the Accessibility Advisory Committee works in those areas. I think most importantly, though, is the second half, which is organized into goals and actions to improve accessibility, categorized along the lines of the 5 standards of the Integrated Accessibility Standards Regulation. So I think what's important to note with this plan is the city has already surpassed most of the legislative timelines for the requirements contained within the AODA and the associated standards. So at this point, the focus of the plan is about maintaining a high level of accessibility, as well as going beyond those legislated minimums as well. And to note, that is why 2025 was chosen as the end period, because that is the end period for most of the standards to be incorporated throughout all the different organizations. And we're anticipating there may be some changes coming to those regulations at that time. So, and just 2 final points that are important to note is out of the suggestions that were received from the public, they were all very valid and important, but some of them were just not feasible during this 3-year time period. So those have been noted in an appendix to the main report. I felt this was important that we recognize that these are important things that the city should work towards accessibility, but they aren't included in the timeline of the plan right now. But if circumstances change or allow for those to be incorporated, they are still there. And that's the other important aspect, is that this is a living document. So it will be updated annually through the year-end reports that are provided to MAC. And just because things are outlined in this report does not prevent staff from going above and beyond if opportunities present themselves to increase accessibility. So that's an important thing to note. And to wrap up my overview, the next steps for the document will be, if it's approved today here by MAC, it will go to the new council. The new term of council starts in mid-November, but will go to their first regular meeting in December for approval. And once approved, will be posted on the city website and then subject to those yearly reviews. And with that, Andrew, I'm happy to answer any questions or receive any comments regarding the report.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Derek, for that. So then any questions, comments for Derek involving that multi-year accessibility plan? Seeing none. Okay. So, Councillor Neal.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Penny Bennett has her hand up.
Okay. Yes, Penny, please.
I would like to just briefly say that I'm very impressed with the work that the city of Kingston does, having lived in other cities. And I'd like to commend the staff for the degree to which they honestly do work on accessibility. It's so important, and I just hope Kingston somehow gets the recognition it deserves for the work that it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Penny, for that. Councillor Neal, do you still have anything home? Okay, anyone else? All right, this time I think there are none. There is a recommendation that the 2023-25 multi-year accessibility plan attached as Exhibit A to report number MAC-22-012 be approved. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that? I see Councillor Neal's hand, and I think I saw Susan's hand first. All in favor? Looks like that has passed. Fantastic. So moving on to item B, which is the temporary sidewalk parking exemption review. Again, we did receive 2 correspondence addendums to the agenda referring to this issue as well as the staff report. Whom is speaking to this?
Mr. Chair, I can speak to that. Matt Cusson here.
Go ahead.
So I can. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I can just give a brief overview of the background of the report. So thank you again, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to the members of the committee and the chair. My name is Matt Cusson. I'm the manager of transportation policy and programs with the city, and I'm joined today by Greg McLean, policy and program coordinator with Transportation Services. So I just wanted to provide a brief introduction to the temporary sidewalk parking exemption review report from council that's before you today for comment. So at the October 4th meeting, council voted to defer the report that's before you today to allow MAC to provide comment on the options that are contained within the report. So based on the feedback that you provide today, our team staff will provide an information report back to City Council on November 10th for their consideration alongside the original report with options. So to provide a quick review of or overview of the background. So in August of 2019, Council adopted a motion that provided a temporary exemption from the parking bylaw and the streets bylaw for up to 24 months for 3 streets in the East End, Bluffwood, Cottonwood, and Cypress, to allow partial obstruction of the sidewalk by personal vehicles parked in driveways, with the intent of still allowing for a pedestrian off-road passage. Since the pilot was adopted, a total of 12 complaints were received concerning the encroachment of vehicles onto the sidewalk at 8 different addresses on the exempted streets. 2 parking tickets and a small number of warning tickets were issued when vehicles were found to be encroaching over the sidewalk to the extent that it didn't allow for off-road passage by pedestrians. And on occasion, these vehicle encroachments impacted sidewalk plow operations, which would have caused them to divert onto the roadway to bypass the encroachment. So there are photos that are included in an exhibit to the report for your reference that include examples of vehicles encroaching on the sidewalk. So I'll just describe the first three that show essentially a pickup truck encroaching the sidewalk with approximately half or more of the sidewalk being impacted by the encroachment, with the fourth showing a pickup truck encroaching the sidewalk and a vehicle also parked in the portion of the driveway between the road and the sidewalk. So based on the findings and observations, there were two options that were provided to council for consideration, which are what we are here today to collect your feedback on. So option one is to discontinue the sidewalk parking exemption and enforce any encroachment by vehicles over the sidewalk under existing clauses within the streets bylaw and or the parking bylaw. Option two is to allow the exemption to permanently continue for the 54 residential lots on Bluffwood, Cottonwood, and Cypress Road with revised and added conditions. So the first condition is that a vehicle must be parked in a driveway as close as practicable to the garage before being permitted to encroach the public sidewalk. And this includes the removal of any obstructions in the driveway that prevent the vehicle from being parked in this manner and is intended to accommodate a single vehicle only. And the second is that in the event that any portion of the public sidewalk across a driveway or adjacent to a driveway cannot be maintained by the city, the owner of the property would be responsible for maintaining the affected portion of the sidewalk clear of all snow and ice as soon as practicable, or otherwise prescribed by the city and in accordance with the city's standards. So in summary, staff are here this afternoon to collect your feedback and comments on the options in the report that's before you. And as noted, these will be captured in an information report that will be referred back to council alongside the options report. And thank you for your time in advance. And Greg and I are here noting your feedback and are happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you for the Matt. I'm seeing a few hands up. I believe Penny had her hand up first. So Penny, please go ahead.
I'm not clear why these three streets, why did this even happen? Why were there three streets chosen, and does it mean that it could be possible that this would be allowed in other areas as well? So could you explain why first, and then I do have a comment.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thanks for that question, Penny. So the three streets that this particular exemption applies to were identified through a council motion specifically for those three streets.
But
so
why?
So there were concerns related to vehicles that were, I believe, parked along those streets and driveways that were encroaching the sidewalk, given the length of the driveways that those properties have, which are in some cases at a minimum of 4.8 meters, which is typically shorter than other driveways that we may see in the city. However, there are other locations in the city where that would be of concern as well. But these were the three streets that were identified in that motion.
Okay. And my comment would be that I would prefer it not to be done at all. I would prefer it to be discontinued. I think, in my opinion, I think that when you allow something, people don't pay attention to how far up they're putting their cars. If they're allowed, they just do it. And there isn't much consideration. I, being blind, come into this, and even when driveways are longer, I come into where people are parked on the sidewalk quite often, and it forces you to go out into the traffic because you never want to go behind a car when if the front is, and you always want to go in front, which means you got to go onto the roadway. So for those reasons, I would definitely not want it to continue.
Okay, thank you for that, Penny. And seeing several hands up, I believe Ryan had their hand up first.
Sorry, before we get to, sorry, Councillor Bohm, through you, Mr. Chair, as Councillor Bohm is an ex officio member of this committee, we would prefer, it's through our bylaw that members of the committee speak first, and then he is given an opportunity to speak once all members of the committee have spoken.
Thank you for that, Ian. So Brian, yes, I'll come back to you. I believe Chantel had hand up next.
Can you hear me?
We
Great.
can, go ahead.
The first thing I'll say is that just from a citizen's perspective, having grown up with a mother in a scooter, I do agree with Penny. I do think that it is, I mean, we are an accessibility committee, and from that perspective, I very much think that disallowing encroachment on the sidewalk is preferable. That's my opinion that I wanted to bring forward. I do have a question as well. And it's regarding the second option, which I'm not a fan of, but I'd like more information. I think that maybe I don't fully understand all of the parameters. It was a lot and it was difficult to visualize exactly what you meant. But what exactly is as close as you can get, the definition of accessibility, and which aspects of it are potentially being challenged? And in what way does the second COA, course of action, in what way does the second COA support accessibility? What are the pros and what are the cons?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to try and answer those questions, and would invite my colleague, Mr. McLean, as well to add in any place that I'm missing. So I think just to answer the first question, which was around the closest practicable. So what the intent of that is that a vehicle would need to, free of any obstruction, be parked as close to the front of the garage as possible. So in under option 2, if a vehicle was parked up to the front of a garage and was done so as close as possible or as practicable, that would meet the the parameters of option 2, even if there was some level of encroachment on the sidewalk. The option 2, I think there's a recognition in the report that there would be impacts to accessibility, in that there would be scenarios where there would be encroachments to the sidewalk, even with a vehicle parking up as close as it possibly could to the garage. So there is certainly a recognition, I think, from the report and from staff side that would have an impact on accessibility for that sidewalk. But that is the parameter that is described, and it's done so in a way to be understandable for the public, and for officers that are enforcing, to understand that is the definition or the approach should option 2 be adopted, that they would kind of operate under option 2.
Okay, I believe next I did see Councillor Neal waved his hand a while ago. Do you still have, Councillor?
My old button doesn't work, so I keep going to the wrong button here. I saw there were 2 other members or 3 other members of the committee that put their hands up. I can reserve what I want to say until the motion is on the floor.
Okay, I will return to you, Councillor, and Brian. After, I believe Amy had her hand up next.
Thank you. I do just have some comments, though I think, unfortunately, I don't really have one way or another, so I'm not sure how helpful my comments are going to be. I think there are some considerations. I think the whole part is it's very unfortunate that the design of this neighborhood was basically designed like this, and the citizens who are living there are now being punished in a sense if they have a vehicle that is unfortunately too large for the driveway, because that is really what we're talking about. The driveway is not large enough for one vehicle to fit. Again, I live in a neighborhood where we're going into the same thing, but I at least know one vehicle fits. 2 vehicles definitely encroach on the sidewalk, so I can appreciate what all of those people are kind of going through, that basically your only option is to find parking on the street, which I know in my neighborhood is very difficult, and I'm not sure in this neighborhood if there are even alternative options for people to park on the street. And we know that in the wintertime, it's highly unlikely because of our winter parking bans. So like, if option 1 goes ahead, again, I think those citizens, unfortunately, what their option is to get a smaller vehicle, which is not necessarily the case. I know they said that the cost of redoing sidewalks would be astronomical, but I am not sure if that is in a long-term plan. I don't know if that's the city's responsibility. I don't know whose responsibility that is in terms of the actual design of the neighborhood. I had a couple questions that I don't know if are able to be answered in terms of the neighborhood itself. Is it like a main thoroughfare? Are we talking about hundreds of people, you know, going to be impacted by if option 2 goes ahead? And then the second question, I know it said there were 12 complaints. I'm assuming that was 12 complaints over the year. But was that one person complaining about 8 different houses, and it just seems to be exacerbating that issue? I totally understand and appreciate that we should never block the sidewalk, but I think we're just up in this situation, in an unfortunate situation, that I'm not sure what these homeowners, and I'm trying to think of as a homeowner, I would hate that thought of, again, you can't even fit one vehicle in the driveway. So I'm leaning more towards option 2. But again, just with the understanding that how many people are actually going to be impacted on this kind of neighborhood roads if that option were to go ahead. I think that's all my comments. Thank you.
Matt, I know Amy had a question. It was a similar question I had. Is there any long-term outlook towards rectifying this situation that you know of at this time?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, I can answer that question and some of Amy's questions. So the first question around, I guess, the nature of the sidewalk and the area, I think it's fair to categorize it as residential. There is, I wouldn't describe it as as thoroughfare per se. The sidewalks are along residents, and there are not any other kind of uses or kind of expected travel through that area, if that answers your question. The question regarding the complaints, so I don't have the exact number of complainants, but I do know that it was certainly more than one, so it wasn't kind of one individual that was submitting all of those singular complaints. And again, I think there were 12 in total and 8 addresses with multiple complainants. And that was over the pilot period. With respect to the sidewalk, so there isn't any plans to adjust that sidewalk. The sidewalk was built in a way that is preferred with a buffer between the sidewalk and the roadway or the active travel lane. So there isn't any plans for the city to make any changes there.
Okay, Amy, does that answer everything?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe Kate had her hand up next. Kate, floor is yours.
Thanks. Because like one of the main sticking points seems to be what happens in winter, right? With snow removal overnight, is there not a way to make the exemption seasonal? I understand the logistical problem of not letting people park in their driveways, but when it comes to rights and accessibility as a right, like there is a duty to really minimize any kind of encroachment on that. So I don't know what the street parking situation would allow for that, but if that's an option, that would be preferable to either just saying not at all or yes all the time.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just in case there was some clarity there. So the current street parking citywide that would apply here would be the winter overnight parking ban, which is in place currently from January to February to allow for sufficient winter operations to take place. And in the shoulder seasons of December and March would be only in cases where there's a weather event that's declared that requires vehicles to be off of the road overnight.
Okay, Kate, did that answer?
Well, it gives more clarification, but yeah, thanks.
Caitlin, I saw your hand up next.
Thanks, Andrew. I just wanted to add that I can appreciate both options 1 and 2. And I know that many of the committee members have already kind of shared some of the pros and cons. Based on my own personal experience, being a person with low vision, I really rely on the sidewalks to go to and from wherever I need to go. And I can share that it's really frustrating when people completely obstruct the sidewalk because, as Penny had mentioned earlier, then you are as a pedestrian forced onto the road. It's not safe and it's hard to get around. And I now have a little baby, so I've got a stroller as well. And I've noticed that when there's obstructions to the sidewalks, it's even more difficult now to find a safe path to and from where I need to go when things are blocking the sidewalks. However, I can appreciate, the homeowners, like Amy had said, they already have these vehicles, they need somewhere to park. There's no really good options, but there are a few options. So personally, I would lean more towards option 2 to try and find sort of a happy medium option that works for everyone, but of course with really strict rules in place that yes, vehicles have to be parked really close up towards, or as close as possible towards the garage. And of course, not allowing like a full sidewalk obstruction or anything like that. Maybe like a small portion would be reasonable, but not the entire thing. And I was also noticing that, the driveways are paved as well. So you do have a little bit of ability if the vehicle is parked and encroaching the sidewalk to have that option to just go around it a little bit so that you're not totally put onto like different level terrain or grass. So I think that it might be a good option. So I personally, just based on my own experiences, would option 2 speaks to me.
Great, thank you very much, Caitlin. Greg, I saw your hand up. Did you have something to add to what Matt was saying earlier?
Yes, sorry, I can't get my video going, but thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity. I just wanted to speak to a question that Kate asked earlier, and that's with respect to the pros and cons about the option 2. So one pro, so to speak, is that option 2 will require residents whose vehicles are encroaching on the sidewalk to the extent that it prevents the city sidewalk plows from plowing the sidewalk, that the requirement would be on that resident to shovel all portions of the sidewalk across their driveway and either side of their driveway that may not have been able to be plowed by the city plow. So option 2 includes that condition to mitigate the impact of an encroachment during the winter time.
Great, thank you for that addition, Greg. Donna, I see your hand was up next.
Okay, a few things. As a motorized wheelchair user, first of all, I'm against this big time. First, I think it's setting precedent. I live in the Rideau Street area. For anybody that doesn't know, it's downtown area. I actually had a personal experience just the other day where a lot of the Rideau Street area driveways, if not, are blocked quite often, not just by residents, but other trucks and stuff. And when you use a motorized chair, plus other mobility devices or strollers, you have no choice but to go out into the street, which obviously you can very easily get hit by a car. So I feel that setting precedent for other streets, so not just those 3, it's very dangerous and can cause obviously a lot of accidents. So I don't think it's just going to be those streets. I think there's going to end up being more, and it's going to be, well, if those 3 streets, what about this street? What about that street? We don't have driveways either. And it's going to become a bigger problem, not now, but months down the road. I think the city's going to get caught up in that. However, when we just speak about those streets, I'm wondering, we do have bylaw that people can call for these things if they're not obeying the bylaw. But how many bylaw officers do we have now for people parking in the accessible parking spaces, whatever, and we can't get bylaw to respond? So we're stuck in issues. They're spread thin as it is. So there's that issue too. Where are we going to go from here when we're already using resources? So the answers, or some of the questions I have for our delegates here, are what to solve this problem, I guess, or ideas, is we have the weather events where with parking on the street and that. So if we were to have it that during weather events, they're not allowed to park on the street. So those days, the encouragement onto the sidewalks usually during weather events, people aren't getting out as much, whether it be strollers or mobility devices, because we are the accessibility committee. We're dealing with accessibility. There's not as much, so it wouldn't be affected as much during weather events. When during the normal times with parking, parking only on one side of the street during non-weather events. This way, the sidewalks would be clear and we wouldn't have the issue of them encroaching onto the sidewalk. The other thing was, I don't know what the street's like. I tried to see from the pictures that were sent. Is there enough room on the street for a similar thing as a bike lane? I can't tell how wide the street is. That there would be another option. For somehow to make it so that it was big enough for a secondary type sidewalk kind of thing. So yeah, so that's my ideas. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Donna. Matt, do you have anything to add to what Donna was saying?
I think there was just a couple parking questions that that I'm happy to let my colleague, Mr. McLean, answer if I believe he has his hand up there.
Yep, he does. Yes, Greg, go ahead, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. So thank you, Diana, for those questions. I wanted to mention for the benefit of the committee that in addition to the prohibition of parking overnight on the street during the winter, and currently that would be overnight during the months of January and February, and then between in the month of December and the month of March, we're piloting the requirement just to get off the street when a winter event is declared. So in addition to that, everywhere in the city, not just on these 3 streets, vehicles are only allowed to park for a maximum of 12 consecutive hours. They have to move after that. They can resume parking after that time period, but the vehicle can't be, that regulation is designed to prevent vehicles from being stored or parked for long periods of time on the street. So if there was a solution, such as you have proposed about allowing vehicles to park on the street, and as part of this solution, that would be a regulation that the vehicles would need to be exempted from. So we're certainly noting that comment and suggestion. In terms of the winter events, again, for the benefit of committee members, as I mentioned, during December and March, when the city declares a snow event, and that is when there's 5 or more centimeters of snow forecasted, or if we're getting freezing rain, that would also trigger the snow event. And so all motorists would be required to move their vehicles from the street into their driveway or somewhere off street in a legal parking space. During December and March, that is just when the weather events are declared. During January and February, it's every night between 1 a.m. and 7 a.m. So just wanted to provide that context for the suggestions that are being provided, and we certainly appreciate that feedback. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for that addition, Greg, for context, certainly. I believe Susan had a hand up next.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm probably just repeating things that have been said at this point, but I guess one thing I wanted to express a concern about is sort of the balance between safety and accessibility versus inconvenience. And I guess it's very difficult when people's safety can be compromised due to mobility, sensory, or other issues versus the relative inconvenience of not being able to park your car in a driveway when, frankly, you bought that house knowing that that was an issue. I live in a neighborhood where there's very little street parking and people have to find alternatives. So I guess I just wanted to express that. But then, of course, you know, it's always helpful to try to find mutually satisfactory solutions as well. And I guess one question I had, well, two questions actually. One question was during the temporary period where people were allowed to park in this way, were the same requirements or stipulations that you're planning to implement for option 2 in place and at the time that those complaints that you received were brought forward? And secondly, it's an issue of enforcement. So if these conditions in option 2 are going to be enforced in some way, will the onus only be upon people who in that moment are possibly experiencing an accessibility or safety issue to alert the city to the violation of those agreements? Or is there some way, if the city is going to allow this, that there can be some monitoring so that the accessibility is ideally given as a provision rather than the onus being on the individual who's experiencing the problem to come forward? And I guess my last comment would be, we're talking about a neighborhood residential area. Assumedly, somebody in that neighborhood or visiting that neighborhood may have a disability and may be, whether it's a high traffic area or not, may be routinely inconvenienced or their safety be compromised by this. So those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Matt, Greg, do you have any information or answers to some of the questions that Susan brought up?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Susan, for that feedback and those questions. So I think to your first question regarding the enforcement during the pilot period and the comparison to what's proposed in option 2. So during the pilot period, staff had were directed through the motion to provide essentially allowing for, the wording was allowing for a pedestrian off-road passage. So staff interpreted that to essentially mean, you know, a space that could have been also between the driveway portion that's between the sidewalk and the roadway, and would have considered that in their interpretation when responding to complaints. The option 2 and the provisions that are included in option 2 are different. So the wording allowing for or requiring vehicles to be parked as close as practicable to the garage was intended to provide more consistency for enforcement and to put the officers in a position where that those provisions could be interpreted and applied consistently, and that determination could be made in a consistent way. So there is a slight or there is a difference between the pilot period and the approach from an enforcement standpoint and what is proposed in option 2, with option 2 trying to kind of make that more understandable for residents and enforceable in a consistent manner. With respect to the question around enforcement and responsive enforcement versus proactive, that's certainly something that that we could pass along to our enforcement team and would discuss with them pending the decision. But certainly, you know, it's something that they would consider, you know, in their regular enforcement rounds as their resources allow for, but would need to refer to them with respect to, you know, if that would be kind of a regular occurrence. It would likely be primarily based on complaints, but they would, you know, enforce, you know, if they were in the area or you know, if they had included that location in their kind of regular enforcement practices. I think I got your questions there, but if I miss anything, please feel free to jump back in. And if there's anything for Greg to add in, I'm happy to defer to him as well.
Okay, I saw a nod there, Susan, so I think you're good. Okay. Chantel, saw your hand up.
Okay, great. So I'm just taking in everything that everyone is saying, and I'm formulating an idea that I think could be reasonable for a solution. I don't know how it works in terms of if there needs to be another motion or whatever, but I'll just give you my comments and you guys can work that part of it out. If I've understood everything correctly, what I'm thinking could be a reasonable solution would be that taking into account option 2, because otherwise people who do have long vehicles, there is going to be a battle between them and the city. So potentially it could be parked as close as practicable to the garage, on the proviso that there is enough room for the widest form of, say like wheelchair or scooter to get around on the sidewalk. And I believe I did hear, I think it was Matt say that. One thing I'd really like to add is, if we can, I think it's really important that in the winter time, even if it's inconvenient, that the plows do create, I'll just use my hands, go behind the vehicle, so that anybody in a wheelchair or in a scooter can remain on the sidewalk or in a de facto sidewalk. Maybe there can be gravel put down going around the back. I don't know. Someone else can figure that out. And the other thing was, in the event that should a vehicle be parked as close as practicable to the garage, yet nevertheless it protrudes across the sidewalk, thereby preventing the safe passage of a scooter or wheelchair to go behind the vehicle, I think it's completely unreasonable to expect someone in a wheelchair or scooter to go onto the street. One solution could be that if a vehicle exceeds a certain number of inches or whatever, centimeters, inches, exceeds a certain number of inches, we'll say, into the sidewalk, that they could go to City Hall and receive a permit to park somewhere near their home until whatever, maybe, I don't know, another solution. But I really think part of what's being missed in the conversation is the long-term solution. I think that the long-term solution is that the sidewalks need to be expanded. I know that that's a lot of money, but what I've proposed, what I've put forward, I think could be, ought to be considered as a potential solution between now and whatever time the budget allows for an expansion of the sidewalks. I hope that made sense, everything I put forward. That's what I had to say.
Thank you for that, Chantal. Matt or Greg, do you have anything to add or answer in regards to what Chantal was saying?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I don't think so from our side. We've just been noting the feedback as it's been coming in. So thank you, Chantal, for that feedback. Appreciate it.
It's for, I know I see Don's hand up. Matt, is this the feedback that council is looking for, or are they looking for a consensus from this committee on whether we recommend option 1 and option 2?
I see Derek has, Mr. O'Shea has his hand up, so I will defer to him on this.
Yeah, I see. Ian
I
as
can
well.
I can defer to Ian as well. This is he is the clerk here. So Ian, if you want to go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is no recommendation on the floor. This is just to gather more information so it can be sent back to council from that standpoint.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Just clarify that. Donna, go ahead, please.
I'm just wondering if it's because it happens more than those 3 streets, if it can possibly be for all streets, like all sidewalks. Or is it just limited to those 3 streets? If it's like educational or whatever.
Matt, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I've noted that feedback just for clarity for the committee that the report that that is before you is just specific to those 3 streets. So staff haven't completed a review of the entire city or really any work specific beyond these 3 streets. So this was a response to the motion, which was specific to those 3 streets, but certainly a point taken, and have noted that that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Matt. Amy.
So I do have another comment, but I know that Ryan did provide some of that discussion material, so I don't know if I'm allowed to like lower my hand for now and provide a comment after, because I'm curious to hear from him in that area if that's allowed, and then I'll ask my comment after if that's okay.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Since we added that to the addendum, that is totally fine. You can comment on that as much as you would like.
But can I let Ryan comment first? Like, are we going to have an opportunity after he talks for committee members to also talk again?
So since we've now gone through most of the committee members that have had that wish to speak, I think it would be best now to give Ryan the chance to speak, and then we will move to members of the public. And then if anyone has any final comments, we will take those, and then we will be able to move on.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you for the clarification, Ian. Ryan, I don't see any other committee members, so please go ahead. Floor is yours.
I'm just gonna thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and through you. Yeah, no, I appreciate this opportunity, and honestly, so many great ideas there. This has been something that I've wrestled with for multiple years now. The homeowners there were assured back when this subdivision was built, going back 20 plus years, that the sidewalk was gonna go in a certain spot, and there'd be plenty of room for them to park their personal vehicles. And lo and behold, the planning was approved and the sidewalk actually went in the wrong spot, and it was much closer to their homes. This is not categorized as just an issue for trucks or vans or large SUVs. There are small cars, literally like some of the smallest cars you can buy, compact cars, that cannot park in their driveway simply because the sidewalk is too close to the house. And I would invite, I wish I had more pictures, but I have driven down that area multiple times. People have literally dented their garage doors and driven into the side of the brick wall on their garage because no resident there wants to encroach on the sidewalk. This is trying to resolve a poor planning issue that was approved by somebody at the city all those years ago, and now makes it all but impossible for residents to park their personal vehicle in their own driveway. I appreciate all the comments. There's some really good feedback here and brainstorming, and I appreciate Councillor Neal at Council, mentioning that this be brought back to committee, because I think the more brains and minds we have on this, the better chance we can come to a compromise solution. And I want to just speak on behalf of the residents there who, this is not an ideal situation for them. They'd love for the sidewalk to be moved, but you're talking millions and millions of dollars and all the services underneath it. So it's just not a feasible solution. So it's trying to find that happy compromise where, it's not going to be ideal really in the grand scheme of things. But it harkens back to the fact that many years ago, a poor planning decision was allowed, and it just exasperated this issue. And some of these people have been in those houses ever since. They're not new buyers. And some of them use their larger vehicles for their livelihood. So it's how they actually afford to live. So to tell somebody, well, you have to get rid of, you know, your work van, but they can't, and there's nowhere else for them to park. I have 5 young children myself. We have a van. I tried to park my van in multiple driveways along that street, and no matter where I did, it encroached on the sidewalk. I went over and talked to all the residents. So this is not a group of people who want to do this. This is a group of people that are literally out of options. It's also in the northeast sector of our district. To the north of it is a multi-use path. To the east of it's a multi-use path. And to the very north of that subdivision is a industrial commercial zone. So this is not a main thoroughfare. This is a very, very residential street that's actually off the beaten path and not very heavily used. So I'm just, as the city councillor for that district, trying to find the best solution to fix a poor planning decision that happened all those years ago with the sidewalk being put in the wrong spot. And additionally, as residents all those years ago raised those concerns, they were assured repeatedly by bylaw officers who, of course, nobody, you know, would no longer work for the city likely and are no longer around, that yes, bylaw would allow them that exemption, and it was never written down anywhere. And so for many, many years, this was never really an issue. And now it comes to a head where you've got people who have owned houses for 20 plus years being told they can't park even their small sedan vehicle in their driveway because it encroaches. There's also the potential here, I think, for some type of special permit exemption if we can allow, we do it in other areas of the city, but homeowners who have vehicles that don't fit in their driveway, no matter how close they park into the garage or into the house, if we can allow them some special permit to park their vehicle on the street year round. And for more than 12 hours, I think there's a potential for a solution there. Ideally, if we can come up with something that allows for some type of compromise in recognition that these homeowners don't want to do this, it's necessitated. There was a comment earlier as well about you know, parking vehicles side by side. I just want to clarify that it's not even side by side that's the issue. It's one vehicle, and the length of that vehicle, no matter how close, it actually encroaches on the sidewalk. In some houses are closer than others, some were set further back, so it's not even consistent along the street. In addition to that, a one bylaw officer 2 years ago, which kind of brought this to a head, told the homeowner, well, leave your garage door half open and just park your vehicle half in your garage, half out, which would basically leave access to their house open as well. And they had another vehicle in the garage as well. So it's just, there hasn't really been a lot of good solutions. The best solution I've seen so far is option 2, where it allows for some type of a compromise and recognition, you know, to the homeowners, but also to the AODA Act and recognizing that, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, we could even put something in there that homeowners have to provide you know, clearing of it. And additionally, they could maybe put little triangles on the edge of their driveways on both sides so that that off-road passage continues and there wouldn't be a change in level. Like I'm just trying to find the best solution here. I do appreciate everybody's time. I actually have to sign off. I have another meeting to go to. I truly appreciate all the brainstorming and look forward to what comes back to council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address you.
Great, thank you, Brian, for that. Appreciate it. Councillor Neal, I haven't forgotten about you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. There's a couple of questions that I think I can answer. Being the oldest, I almost said fire, the oldest guy on council and having been on council for 18 years. Penny asked, why was this ever approved in the first place? Which is a really good question. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this happened with the previous township giving planning approval. I may be wrong, but I believe that's the case. And if that's the case, they didn't have the kind of parking engineers expertise that the city now has. This would never, ever be approved in the city. Because it would go through a technical review and it would be turned down. So this, and somebody else said, well, will this set a precedent? Somebody else said, well, we should do this elsewhere. I think that would be, you see the complaints now, if we tried to make it kind of universal across the city as a right, it would create havoc. I also want to just remind members of the committee that our focus here, and I think it was Susan that said, are we addressing an accessibility issue, or are we addressing a parking inconvenience issue? And that's a great question, because the reality is and the risk is, if we give approval to this, somebody could complain to the AODA that what we've done to the province is we've breached our commitment to meet the standards established by the province to assure accessibility. So for that reason, having said all that, the reality is that we are an advisory committee, and our terms of reference are to address accessibility only, not parking. So our focus should be on accessibility and accessibility only. And the reality is that the council, and unfortunately I won't be on council to make this this point, but when it goes to the new council in December, they have every right to ignore this committee and go ahead. I would suggest if they do that, they're putting the city at some risk, because parking should not trump the AODA. So I feel better after that rant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hill. Chantal, I see you back up. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. I guess for me, I apologize if this would require another motion, but I'm not really feeling completely comfortable with with either of the options. I hear the point. It is about accessibility from this committee's perspective, but I almost feel like as a committee member, I'm being asked to choose something that's not in the best interest of anyone. And ultimately, that's what compromises are. If required, I would like to put forward another motion, or however it works. I would feel much more comfortable being in a position to vote or put my formal voice forward, simply to say all year round, something, whatever that something is, something needs to require accessibility to the sidewalk at all times. Whatever that something is, perhaps that is really more for council to discuss rather than our committee. So if I'm doing it correctly, I would like to put forward another motion to vote on, and I would like that to be that the sidewalk, at least one lane wide enough for the widest motorized or like wheelchair scooter. I don't know what the overarching term is. At least one lane wide enough at all times on every sidewalk to be accessible. I just feel uncomfortable, like I'm being put in a position to vote homeowners versus people in scooters and wheelchairs. And obviously, to me, it just makes sense that would take precedence. But I just don't like the way that the motions are worded, and I'd like to maybe put forward to a third motion to just simply say a lane on the sidewalk wide enough to accommodate all accessible vehicles at all times, at all year round, and then leave it to council to decide how to achieve that.
Okay, Ian, sorry, can't shut up. I think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no motions on the floor or in this report. This is only for information purposes. So the members of this committee are not voting on these. This will be up to council. If you wish, I know the staff that are present here have been taking notes and will be providing an information report based on the feedback they have received so far to council when this goes to council. And then you also do have your own option as well to send in correspondence later as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that clarification, Ian. It's important to keep in mind here. Amy, I know you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Thank you. I know I've been talking about this for a while, so hopefully this is quick. I just wanted to make note of one final, just my feelings in the sense of we've gone back and forth on a lot of different things, and I'm leery with option 2. While I appreciate option 2, and I'm leaning more towards that way, the fact that it is make it permanent, I think there's still too much discussion happening and different options that may be presented. So I wouldn't necessarily feel good about it going forward as a permanent exemption if there are still these alternative options that are being potentially discussed. So that would be my feeling. Again, I know the side of the homeowners, it's been a long time since they've been trying to deal with this and they just don't want to deal with it, which is, I'm assuming, why they want it to be a permanent exemption. But just at this point in time, just with all of these discussions, I'm not even sure if that's an option, but that would be my preference, that it's not permanent, even if it goes ahead with option 2, because I still think there's other alternatives and discussions that could be had to come to a better solution.
Great. Thank you very much, Amy. Ian, I see your hand shooting up there.
Sorry, Mr. Clerk, just want to make sure there are 2 members of the public in the viewing gallery which have their hands up. So if we could go to them before we move on, that would be fantastic.
Certainly, yes. If those members, I also have my 2 cents to add. So I'll do it very quickly before going to the public members. Just from my point of view, I really have to say I've been back and forth at least 6 times today on this, but at the end of it, I think Councillor Neal spoke to it very eloquently. We are an accessibility committee. We're not a parking committee. I can certainly see both sides of this, but at being accessibility committee and doing the work I do outside of this committee, I do worry about AODA complaints and human rights complaint coming through that the city, I'm sure, does not want to deal with either. So for that reason, I lean towards option 1 myself. But certainly at this time, the 2 members of the public wish to go ahead, please do.
First, I can see Chuck Roswell, and I'm going to have the host to unmute him. Just as a quick note to members of the public, you have 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
You can go ahead, Chuck, you're unmuted. Okay, I think we're having some technical issues, so perhaps we'll try the second public speaker then. So I will invite Roger Healy then to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I wrote the letter from Kingston Coalition for Active Transportation. We're a group that, sorry, can everyone hear me okay? All right, good. We're a group that is always trying to keep track of issues that develop within the city, where the unfortunate fact is we have a very automobile focused society, and the balance between accessibility, pedestrian access to areas, safe road use by everyone is always seems to be in favor of automobiles, and we're constantly aware of that imbalance and trying to promote more access to everybody. What we have to make sure we understand is this is the public realm. The the property owners, the residential property owners do not own that sidewalk. They are storing their vehicles so that they encroach on the sidewalk. And I know it's a very unfortunate situation. And I commend Councillor Bone for trying to advocate for his residents. But there are 11 other councillors who will come to us for exemptions, and we will end up with a city full of exemptions, and that's very difficult for our enforcement officials to monitor. So I'll leave you with the letter. I really think the bottom line is that we always, in the case of accessibility, always tend to favor automobiles, and we really should be very cognizant of the priority of pedestrians in this situation. So that's the end of my comments. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And I do commend you for all the great ideas and comments you've made today. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Roger, for that. Chuck, are you there?
So, Mr. Chair, we have unmuted Chuck's microphone again, but I think, oh, okay, he's muted and unmuted. Chuck, can you try one more time? So, Mr. Chair, I think we're having some technical difficulties. What we can do to tell Chuck is that he can choose to provide written comments to the committee clerk, and those can be forwarded to council. But I think at this time, it's probably best that we move on.
I agree with that. So yes, certainly, Chuck, written comments to the clerk and to be distributed to the committee. Thank you for your attention to this. Thank you for everyone for the discussion. Just before I move on, David, I saw a hand shoot up.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm not going to add to the conversation. We've had a full disclosure, I think, and I appreciate it. More procedurally, this is going to December's council meeting, ? And if so, do we're able to tune into that virtually and perhaps receive a report or something? I'm just not clear on that part of it, that's all.
Ian, please, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not certain when it's been deferred to. I think it was deferred to the November 10th meeting of council. So there will be a information report with all this information brought to that. So that's next Thursday. A bit of a weird date for a council meeting, but it is the last one of the current term. And you will be able to view that virtually online via YouTube, or you can come in person to City Hall as well to see it as well. Thank you.
Councillor Deal, I see a hand.
Just very quickly, I would strongly suggest there were some good ideas, both in an effort to mitigate this situation and some strongly held beliefs one way or the other. Please put it in writing and send it through the clerks to mayor and council. Try to do that before that scheduled meeting on the 10th, because otherwise it goes on an addendum that's much too long for most councillors to read before the council meeting begins. True confessions. So if we can address that with a letter, please do so. And I don't believe that the public input or committee input on an individual basis will be able to get to the council floor. So letters would be really good. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hale. So with that, I'm going to move on to 7C, the recruitment and retention accessibility update. Kevin, see you pop it on. I'm assuming that's you. So if it is, go right ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to everyone here this afternoon. So my name is Kevin Stevenson. I supervise the recruitment and selection team here at the city. So we have a team of 5 individuals and then myself included, who manage all of the recruitment and selection across the corporation. So I'm pleased to speak to you to the information report that was submitted on behalf of the entire Human Resources Department and organizational development team here with the city, and happy to answer any questions or receive any comments about the information that's been highlighted. The report speaks to the various work and initiatives, both in 2 phases, both in the organizational design area, so organizational design and development. And you can interpret that as more of the learning and development and ongoing training within the corporation. And it also speaks to the recruitment and selection areas as a whole, in terms of what we provide overall for accommodation throughout the entire recruitment life cycle. As you can see through the report, just focusing more so on the organizational design and development piece first, we do provide ongoing annual training on many fronts, from Ontario Human Rights Code and accessibility for Ontarians with disabilities, to code of conducts, to respect in the workplace. That dovetails into all new hires, so they would go through the same onboarding and the same learning and development opportunities as a new employee, and then continue on as an existing staff member within the corporation. The organizational design and development team regularly conducts assessments with city departments to make sure that we are creating and providing customized and creative approaches to learning and development across the corporation as well. The pandemic obviously has changed a little bit of the opportunities that we've been able to provide in the community, more in particular around the Disabilities Mentoring Day in 2020. I don't believe it took place because of the pandemic. Happy to say that we got back online in 2021, and we just went through the 2022 Disabilities Mentoring Day. I believe it was about a month ago now. What's going on here? So the recruitment and selection piece as a whole, through the report, I tried to provide a little bit of context around referencing for all new hires the accommodating disability policy within the organization, and the fact that Human Resources Department has looked at essentially every policy and program that we have related to a number of areas. They've all recently been reviewed and are going through that evaluation process by our Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Office to make sure that they're updated and current. Speaking more specifically to the recruitment piece, all job applicants are notified at every single stage of the job competition, from the time we put job ads live and broadcast them out to the time that candidates are identified and selected for an interview, and ultimately invited to come in for an interview with the corporation. There's notification to those candidates that accessibility accommodations are certainly available. So through the report, there's a couple of examples just in terms of language related to not only the opening statements of every single job that's posted, but also the closing statements, and encouraging and welcoming, candidates with disabilities to raise their hand and speak to us confidentially in the recruitment team about their needs. When we look at some of the external agencies and partnerships, again, more specifically from a recruitment perspective, the city has engaged the services provided by Equitech Employment Equity Solutions since 2018. And this is something that from a recruitment point of view, every single job that's posted within the corporation is automatically linked through Equitech. So they'll take all of our jobs and actually publish them on the city's behalf to their different job boards and networks. The discoverability network, so the DAN tool, is also another tool that we've started to leverage now within the corporation. We're fortunate enough to have a presentation by the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, I believe in 2021, to address and highlight what the DAN network is and how organizations can leverage its capability. So happy to say that we continue that partnership with the DAN network and continue to post positions through it. We also collaborate regularly with the different community organizations like the March of Dimes, Keys, and temp agencies as well. Internal training from a hiring perspective, when we look at the interview stage and the interview selection process, we do ensure that every hiring manager or every panel member that's going to be involved with selection for the corporation has gone through comprehensive, thorough training around not only the legalities of interviewing, but also, accommodating individuals and making sure that we meet the needs of everybody, regardless of, what the needs are. Further to that, we do have a permanent and a temporary accommodation committee that has been established within the corporation and has been for some time. And it is a collaboration between recruitment and selection and occupational health and safety to meet our duty to accommodate individuals within the corporation that, for various reasons, it's been determined that they have a permanent accommodation and cannot perform the job that they're currently in. So we do meet on a weekly basis between recruitment and occupational health to identify what limitations and restrictions are in place for that individual. And then recruitment speaks to all the various current job opportunities and pending job opportunities that potentially could be coming down to our area so that we can identify, if we have an opportunity to permanently place somebody into another role and follow a certain terms of reference around things like the hourly rate, the status of the job, and the day-to-day responsibilities. We've also gone to the extent of looking at temporary accommodation committees where that individual would be looked at to be temporarily placed into an opportunity before a permanent opportunity comes up within the city. So it gives us more leeway to make sure that we keep people gainfully employed and that we're not putting up a barrier in terms of employment opportunities to staff. Some of the future plans, so it's an exciting program that we're coming into for 2023, where we presented to our corporate management team an entire talent management framework that would encompass every aspect of human resources within the corporation, from essentially branding and attraction about employment opportunities, to the recruitment and selection piece, to providing learning and development and career opportunities, to providing total rewards programs and incentives and initiatives for staff, to ultimately the overall well-being and enhancements in culture for staff here within the city. So work's currently being done to create subcommittees and groups that will focus on best practices, leading edge initiatives, and just creative ideation around those 5 major components of the talent management framework, in which we hope to make further changes and enhancements, and fully expect that discussions will happen around accommodation, and making sure that we're seen as an equitable organization. So that's, in summary, a little bit about what we're doing from a human resources and organizational development perspective, and happy to answer any questions or provide any further comment.
Great, thank you for that, Kevin. Questions? I see Penny Santa. Please go ahead.
I have one question, which I hope isn't inappropriate, and a comment. My one question is, for as far as the city is in terms of looking for people, do we have any difficulty finding people as other businesses and companies are doing? How how is the city doing that way, just in terms of the numbers of people that you haven't been able to fill? And is there any kind of issue there? It's just, I guess, out of curiosity more than anything, so it might not be an appropriate question. And my comment is, would you consider, or please consider, because I'm not asking you would or you wouldn't, I'm making a comment. Please consider that to put a little bit of emphasis at the beginning of a job posting that accommodations are given. And the reason I'm saying this is because there's still a lot of fear amongst people with disabilities that if they disclose before an interview that it's going to be counted against them. But if they're made to feel welcome up front, more so than you're doing right now, that you'll get people, and I think it's a better interview overall if people are up front and disclosing, because then if there is an accommodation, it's being made appropriately and it just feels more welcoming. So that's just a comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I do appreciate the comments, Penny, just in terms of optics and what we can do as an organization to make sure that we remove any barriers and ensure that it's a comfortable process for a candidate to go through. And so I do appreciate the comments you made and happy to address it with our team. To answer your question around the difficulty recruiting, I think it's, certainly the world has gone through a lot of change, and we're in a labor market that is challenging us in many areas. So I would say a broad comment would be, yes, we do have some difficulty recruiting for a number of positions within the municipality.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that is universal and it's not unique to the city of Kingston or the positions here in general, and so we're looking at creative ways of attracting and retaining talent across the city, which really is one of the main drivers of why we're looking at introducing an entire talent management framework into the corporation, which we've started over the last few months.
Great, thank you for that, Kevin. Is there any other questions, comments for Kevin before we move on? I don't see any hands up. So Kevin, thank you very much for joining our meeting and giving that update and presentation.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.
All right, moving on to 7D, Accessibility Office Report for the second quarter, quarter 2, quarter 3, 22. Derek, it's got to be you.
Yep. Thank you, Andrew. And I'll be very quick, seeing as this has been a long meeting already. So this will also be my last meeting where I am acting as the Accessibility Office Coordinator. Janet will be returning to the role next week when the election office closes. So looking at the numbers from Q2 and Q3, inquiries dropped going into Q2 from Q1, but then increased going into quarter number 3 from quarter number 2. In both cases, each quarter, the average number of inquiries was above the 4-year average as well. So long story short, there was an increase in inquiries over the past 2 quarters. Looking at the data, the inquiries were primarily related to parking, in that there was an increase in both areas. They can be generalized as the themes were reports of people parking illegally in accessible parking spaces, and then people contesting tickets or sharing information that they weren't aware they were in an accessible parking space. So that's, I don't think, surprising to anybody that would be one of the frequent categories of inquiry. Additionally, the roads and sidewalk inquiries trended down throughout these quarters, naturally with the change to better weather, less inquiries related to snow removal and snow clearing. Still inquiries received that would fit the accessibility criteria, just less. The other one that I would want to point to is there were a significant number of complimentary inquiries related to customer service from Kingston Transit related to helping persons with disabilities or persons who had accessibility needs. So I think we'll take that as a very positive one to receive, and that not all inquiries we receive are related to service issues. So that's sort of a quick overview of the statistics. Otherwise, things coming out of the accessibility office. The annual update from Transportation and Public Works was deferred until early next year due to the large number of items we had on the agenda today. And speaking of which, the terms are ending for this committee concurrent with the end of this current term of council. So I believe Ian has sent everybody information about if you wish to reapply to serve on the committee. We ask that you submit your application before the end of next week. I believe the deadline is the 11th at 4 p.m. So new appointments will likely be confirmed in early December by the new council. Quickly, I will mention that the past week, the city participated in Disabilities Mentoring Day. There were 3 mentor-mentee partnerships that happened, 2 within our communications group and 1 within our strategy, partnership, and innovation group. So I'll get some more details on that, but always a good opportunity, even on a small scale, for our staff to participate and show the what working for the city is like for people who are job ready and may have disabilities. And the last thing I will mention, looking at my notes, is in about a month's time, we have the Celebrating Accessibility Awards. So the project team, we are meeting tomorrow to select the award recipients. The event is scheduled for Friday, December the 2nd from 1 to 3 p.m. in Memorial Hall. And we're just working to confirm the final aspects of that. We do have a confirmed speaker, Desiree Walsh, who was recommended by Kate. She is a comedian, also works in user experience. So I think she will bring a pretty unique perspective to it. I'm very happy that she'll be attending and giving us a bit of a talk about what life is like as a young person, a comedian, and a person with a disability as well. So good insights, and also I think we'll be laughing a bit as well. So that's everything for me, Andrew. I'll turn it over if there's any questions.
Is there any questions for Derek about that? Susan, I saw a hand flash there. Go ahead.
Yes. Derek, I just wondered, I may have sent you an email about this. Are we going to be able to attend, if we can't attend in person, the Accessibility Awards? Can we attend virtually?
It's a great question, Susan. I did mean to get back to you. I've been trying to get in touch with
Fine, I didn't mean it.
No worries. Just need to confirm with our IS&T department that we have the staff capabilities to do that. I believe we still have the technical capabilities in Memorial Hall. It's undergone a renovation recently. So I will confirm with everybody if that is potential. So thank you for reminding me of that, Susan.
Great. Is there any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. The next up was the presentation that we heard earlier from Spiros and Jeff as well about the facilities management and construction services update. Is there any further questions that I see Jeff still here that Jeff can address about that presentation earlier? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Moving on now, working group reports. The Awareness and Education Working Group. Derek, is that you again?
Yep, this is me one last time, everybody. It's a quick report. I've covered the aspects about the Accessibility Awards. The only other project that's been working on there is the accessibility mapping. So we do have an interactive map that highlights accessibility features throughout the city. That is basically ready to go live. I've received some training on how to update that, so I have the ability to make changes as things see fit. Additionally, there is a way that the information can be displayed in sort of a plain text format as well. So if persons who use screen readers want to access it, it's a bit more of a simplistic way than trying to navigate through a map. So that should hopefully be going live soon. It was a bit delayed as our department was very busy with the election the last several months. So that will be coming soon. Thank you, Andrew.
Great, thank you very much. Next, David, for the Built Environment Working Group.
Okay, hi guys. There's a report attached. I won't read it all, just to say that we've been busy meeting monthly with a couple of exceptions. It shows September there. In the report you've got October. September we had another briefing from Deaf Space. Leah Riddell, from a former MAC member, was attending. October was postponed, and next couple of weeks on the 17th is our last built environment meeting of the cycle. We have a briefing from planning regarding the accessibility checklist that we use for projects and for site plans. So we've always got that going. I think the main news here is that we have openings on the team at the moment, even before our new membership is slated to arrive. So there's certainly an extended other welcome, which I think I always do, to the MAC or to the Built Environment meeting Thursday, November 17th at 10 a.m. virtually. And we're doing that same old switch over as other working groups and committees are doing. So some of us are leaving, some of us are staying. But if you're interested, I think that our meeting on the 17th might give you a good taste of the kinds of things that we regularly do at our meetings. So I'll leave it at that for the moment. And if anybody has any any questions, happy to take them.
Okay, then the questions about either of those reports that we heard. Okay, seeing none, can I have a mover and a seconder that we've received and accept those reports? I see Janice and Glenn. I'll get you in there, Glenn. All in favor? Great, that is passed. Moving on to appointments to project teams. Again, very timely, looking for 3 appointments for the Celebrating Accessibility Awards. And Ian, before I get there, I see your hand up.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I forgot to actually include this on the agenda. Janice Wilby, Penny Bennett, and Amy Birch volunteered to join that via email back in September, I believe. So we just need to confirm them.
Okay, great. Super. So I'll do that at the end of this one too. So looking for 2 appointments for the City Hall Market Street Bridge. I see Glenn, now I see Donna. Thank you very much. That was easy for a change. My goodness, I love it. So that is 2 people for that. So with all that in mind of what Ian said, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept those appointments? I see Councillor Neal and I saw Kate. All those in favor? Excellent. That is passed. So moving on motions. I see none. Notices of motions. I see none. Oh, I saw Councillor Neal with a hand. Go ahead, Councillor Neal.
Thank you. Actually, perhaps the clerk, I think it would be nice if the chair on behalf of the committee sent a condolence card to our former member that passed. And I know that the mayor or the CAO's office usually has such things at City Hall, so perhaps Ian can track one down. And if you can sign it, that would be great on our behalf.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can certainly coordinate with the other members of our office, and we can see if we can get something like that sent out on behalf of the committee. Absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Councilor Dale. That's much appreciated. Other business. Does anyone have anything they would like to add? Penny, I see a hand up. Go ahead.
I just want to quickly say that I had my very first absolutely positive experience voting. I was part of the people who tested the machines. I don't know how much people use them, but the first time in my life that I knew, and I absolutely knew for sure that I voted for the person I wanted to vote for in all the cases. And it was absolutely perfectly done. I would not change anything about how that machine works. Thank you.
Thank you for the Penny. That's really good to hear. Derek, I see a hand up.
I just want to quickly add that we did have 6 electors use the accessible voting machines, which is actually a record number for the city. And thanks to Penny and Amy for helping us test it, so we were able to appropriately train our staff on how to use it.
Fantastic. That is great to hear. And I'm sure those systems will be used more and more as we go through the years. Let's see now. Moving on to correspondence. We did have those 2 addendums that correspondence that related to the earlier agenda item 7B. So I believe that has been addressed. The date of the next meeting is to be determined. Once we get new membership and all that good stuff. So before I adjourn, I would like to take very briefly, just a couple of minutes, maybe a minute and a half. This is I've reached my 6 years on MAC, so I'm leaving the committee. I believe certainly David is also 6 years in, so 2 of us are moving on. I just wanted to extend a big thank you to everyone on the committee. It's been a privilege and an honor. I think today is a great example of the important and necessary work that we do. I also would love to thank city staff, Derek and Jenna as well, and all those in between. Over the last 6 years, city staff has been exemplary, phenomenal staff. We're so lucky to live in the city. And speaking of which, Councillor Neal, I know you're moving on, but I did see your name on the school board trustees, so I think you're retired, but not really. But thank you very much for all your commitment and dedication to MAC over these many years. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. So now we come to the end, adjournment, and I have a mover and a seconder for adjournment. I see Councilor Neal's like, yes, let me out of here, please. And Susan, all those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you again so much. You might
Thank
see
you,
me
Andrew.
again